Perfectionism is a major characteristic associated with gifted students and has been a topic of focus for researchers studying the gifted population. Types of perfectionism has been identified through three dimensions: self-orientated perfectionism, which is perfectionistic expectations that has been imposed on oneself; other-orientated perfectionism, which is perfectionistic expectation imposed on others; and socially prescribed perfectionism, which is perceived by the significant others imposed perfectionistic expectations on oneself. As discussed in the previous article, two perfectionism dimensions that have emerged to identify the types of measures of perfectionism are multidimensional perfectionism scale, which is adaptive, and the maladaptive evaluation concerns, which is maladaptive. Based partly on those two factors, the Almost Perfectly Scale Revised (APSR) has been developed, which classifies people into different types of perfectionist: adaptive, maladaptive, and non-perfectionist. While both adaptive and maladaptive perfectionists have high standards, maladaptive perfectionist tends to experience higher levels of discrepancy than adaptive perfectionist. Although possessing high standards may be considered as a positive, perceiving a high discrepancy between one perceived standards and performance has been identified as a negative aspect of perfectionism, associated with higher levels of depression and anxiety, as well as lower self-esteem and life satisfaction. The literature also identified normal and neurotic perfectionism. Although normal perfectionists approach tasks with a confident desire for success and expectation for improvement, neurotic perfectionists are afraid of failure, which leads to task avoidance and anxiety. The belief of achievement goal orientation appears to be relevant in differentiating adaptive and maladaptive perfectionism. The literature further defines achievement goal orientation, which is quoted as integrated patterns of belief, attribution, and effect that produce intentional behavior that is represented by different ways of approaching, engaging in, and responding to achievement types of activities. Types of achievement goal orientation are distinguished as mastery versus performance, with the latter focusing on improving one's ability and latter placing emphasis on demonstrating, performing, and proving one's ability. Perfectionists reported that their achievement motivations were driven by a fear of failure, which later led them to develop both performance avoidance goals as well as performance approach goals. In other studies, students with higher self-orientated perfectionism were more likely to adopt mastery and performance approach goals orientations. Contingent self-worth refers to basing one's self-esteem on outcomes in certain domains, was not only strongly associated with maladaptive perfectionism, but also mediated the relationship between perfectionism, cognition, and depression. Because of this, comparing adaptive, maladaptive, and non-perfectionist groups on life satisfaction have yielded inconsistent results. Self-efficiency has also been linked to perfectionism, with perfectionists being characterized by the tendency of constantly feeling that one is not meeting standards and being strongly associated with lower levels of self-efficiency. The main purpose of this study is to examine whether having high mastery goals buffered against negative effects of discrepancy on academic efficiency and satisfaction with life. With this hypothesis of whether having high discrepancy is associated with lower academic efficiency, satisfaction with life being examined. The sample of the study consisted of 144 middle and high school students from 6th to 12th grade, which 53 were boys and 87 were girls. A total of 168 students completed the online survey, yielding a response of 19%. The participants were from suburban Midwest U.S. school district with a total of enrollment of around 895 gifted middle and high school students. The gifted students in the high schools district were selected based on screening process and then the individual evaluation. The screening process included data from the national and state achievement test scores, group intelligence test scores, and previous grades and recommendations from teachers and parents and other personnel. The main criterion for the individual evaluation was scoring above 97th percentile on the individual intelligence test. The participant of this study, 74% identified themselves as white, 17% identified themselves as Asian American, 2% as African American, and 2% as a Latin American, and 5% as a multi-ethnic or other. Measurement of analysis. The study was trying to measure include professionalism, goal orientation, academic self-efficiency, contingent self-worth on academics, and satisfactions with life. Mastery goal did not moderate the relationship between discrepancy and satisfactions with life, but there was a significant three-way interaction effect for academic self-efficiency. Having high mastery goals served as a protective factor against the impact of discrepancy on academic efficiency for gifted students.